Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. The big game of the Champions League match day featured Juventus against Manchester United, with Juventus comfortably defeating United. Where did Juventus go right? Why did Manchester United struggle? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Juventus beat Manchester United. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. The bell below does give you notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to try to briefly break down where United struggled and why Juventus were so superior by breaking down the first half and then getting to the second half. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We have Manchester United, they actually didn't make any changes to the lineup. That saw them draw Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Lukaku up front ahead of Juan Mata, out in wide areas. The speed of Rashford and Martial, and in midfield, Paul Pogba and Nemanja Matic. Juventus going with more of a 4-3-3 on paper to start the game. Ronaldo out wide, Cuadrado out right, Dybala kind of playing through the central, but they were interchanging throughout, so to give them a defined position would be a bit harsh. And then in midfield, Bentancur, and they went with Matuidi slightly ahead of Pjanic. So first, let's get to the first half and see why Juventus comfortably dominated that half and why United struggled. So before we get into the key talking points of the first half, let's break down the two shapes and see how Juventus were able to get their advantage in the first half, or for most of the game, to be honest. When we look at it, you have United there in a 4-2-3-1. Basically, they want to get their midfielders involved, shutting down Juventus's midfielders. They have the 3v3 battle. Basically, Mata, they wanted him to sit on Pjanic like he did to Jorginho over the weekend. That means Pogba and Mata should be dealt with Bentancur and Matuidi, both very physical midfielders on the Juventus side, so you think that Pogba and Matic should be able to hold their own. However, with United dropping off into more of a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1, what happened here was based that they were too open in midfield. In terms of them vertically, they were trying to compress the space, and that was key, but what happened was that there were too many gaps for Juventus players to drop into. You had Ronaldo dropping deeper, Young was forced into fouls. You had Dybala dropping in, that's 4v3. You had the front three basically interchanging positions throughout, and that was very pivotal because it forced United in and out of different positions that they didn't want to be in. And the other aspect was the wide players of Juventus and Cancelo and Alex Sandro. They are not Marcos Alonso, and they are definitely not Cesar Azpilicueta. So what ended up happening here was, again, they were forced into these positions where you kind of had a six-man back line, and that was pivotal. You have Chiellini and Bonucci pushing forward, Lukaku not really doing a good job of closing down one. If there was one to close down, it'd be Bonucci, given the fact that he has that great passing range, and that wasn't done here either. And one of the biggest issues that they did have in the first half, which kind of really set the tempo of the game, was the fact that no one was really tracking Cancelo's runs. We saw it throughout, and Juventus was having tons of joy down the right-hand side. What stemmed from that was based that you would have Bentancur and Matuidi kind of push off to get on the ball to ensure that Pogba and to ensure that Matic wouldn't step into those positions. Well, sometimes what they would do is that they would push out so deep that it would force Martial to step into them. You'd have Cuadrado kind of pushing a bit narrow to tuck into Luke Shaw, and then that leaves gaps for Cancelo to break into. We saw Bentancur push into that space. We saw Dybala push into that space. We saw Ronaldo push into that space. So that was one of the key elements here. You occupy Martial, and even if you have Cancelo run by Martial, that is also key because he's able to do that. And then when you have someone occupying Shaw, then that allows the space for Cancelo to push into, and that was basically the key element of the first half for Juventus. They had tons of chances that stemmed down that flank. So let's get to that and see how Juventus were able to monopolize possession and exploit United down that flank. So we break down the chances in the first half. The first one starts with Bentancur dropping off a bit deeper. What happens here is that he drops off into that space, and we have Dybala pushed to the left of Matic. Like we said, the gaps between the midfield bank were extremely open. He drops into that space. Lindelof tracks him. What happens here is that the ball is played in, and he slides it instantly to Cuadrado. Now you have Lindelof and Matic within close proximity of Dybala, but he's able to continue his run towards the box. Cuadrado takes on Sean, clips the ball to match Dybala's run into the box. It's just a bit too high, but Dybala flashes his effort wide. A free header on goal. If that was Ronaldo or any other player, perhaps it's a goal, and it should be a goal, but it's a warning sign for Manchester United, and it shows how easy it was for Juventus to bypass Matic and get service into those wider areas. Then when we get to the build-up of the goal, this is when we really see everything. We have Ronaldo drifting out into that space with Bentancur. We have Cuadrado shifting into that central role, and we have Cancelo wider with Shaw. What happens here now is that Bentancur receives the pass from Bonucci. Ronaldo drifts off also into that deep role. He plays the pass into Ronaldo. Ronaldo occupies Martial. So what happens here is that when Bentancur gets the ball, he slides it over to Pjanic. Mata is nowhere near him, and Pjanic instantly plays the diagonal out to Cancelo. Once the diagonal's out to Cancelo, you already see Ronaldo running past Martial, exploiting his inability to really track runs. Although he has done a good job here, Ronaldo against Martial in a foot race, Ronaldo wants to exploit that. The ball is instantly played into Ronaldo. Martial tracks it, and then the clipped cross into the box because Lindelof doesn't track the run when he could go across to help Martial out. He stays in his position. The ball into Ronaldo. See Smalling track it well. He tracks the run well. He's able to deflect the ball off Cuadrado, but it falls right to Dybala. Lindelof still in the position that he was in, ball watching, and from point blank range, Dybala is able to fire his effort in on goal. We get players back into their natural positions. Let's look at another opportunity here where it's Pjanic, this time seeing Cancelo playing in more of a narrow role. Cancelo plays in more of a narrow role. What happens here is that Bentancur makes a run in between Shaw and Lindelof to drag them out of position. You have Ronaldo here dropping off, passes played into him. Cancelo continues his run by Matic and gets the layoff from Ronaldo and drives into that right-hand space because Matic had stepped into Cancelo. So when he makes that run and bypasses him, he fires a shot on goal, and De Gea is forced to push it away. This is how United were really getting about their business. We even saw a time where Dybala drifted out to the right-hand side. Bonucci plays it out to him. Because what happened here is Lukaku has to mark both, and he's not stopping Bonucci from playing passes into the attacking zones, and that should have been a point of reference for Mourinho to get Lukaku to sit on him specifically because he is an additional playmaker from center back. The ball drifts out into that zone against Shaw, plays into him. No one tracks Bonucci's run into that space, and then you have Lindelof come across. The ball is whipped in, but again, it's cleared, but it's a warning sign for United. We're seeing Juventus get into these zones with these bypassing Matic, exploiting Shaw, overloading Martial. We get to another opportunity. We have Bentancur dropping ahead of Martial this time. And what happens here is that when we look at the space between the lines, you have Dybala kind of dropping off into the space between Martial and Matic. You have Cuadrado dropping off into the space between Pogba and Matic. And what we have here is that Bonucci plays the pass into Dybala, and he instantly slides it out to Cancelo. Martial and Shaw drag themselves to Cancelo. Ronaldo drags out of position and pulls Lindelof away from the scene, and we have Dybala running off Matic. The ball is poked into right half space. The cross goes through Smalling's legs, but Young is able to clear his lines. But again, we're seeing Juventus dominate that right-hand side with various movement from different players. One more opportunity. What happens here is that Bonucci, when we get these players back into position, what we see from this play here is that we have a diagonal clipped out to Cancelo. When it's clipped out to Cancelo, what happened there was that Dybala was sitting on Shaw. We had Cuadrado drop off a bit deeper to occupy Martial. And when it's played into Cancelo, what happens here is that Shaw ends up pushing out wide into that space, and we have Dybala running off. So with Dybala running off in behind him, we have Lindelof tracking, and this cross is blocked for a corner kick. But we put that into perspective when we look at United's line and the way they were set up. Yes, it was okay. Down the left-hand side, we often saw the same thing where Ronaldo could push out and play a bit as in a deeper position with Sandro pushing back Young, but they were more composed in that area, and a lot of the threat came down the right-hand side. And the fact that United's midfield were so open and chasing shadows, and Juventus had players dropping into those zones, overloading the center of the pitch and then overloading the right-hand side. So when we look at that and we put into perspective Ronaldo and Matuidi forcing De Gea into saves, Dybala bending an effort inches wide of the far post, Juventus were in full control, retaining possession, creating chances down the right-hand side, finding space between the lines, and it was now based off United, and we're going to see if they were able to mount another comeback. So when we get to the second half, we have to look to see if anything else changed between Juventus and Manchester United. So let's get to the second half. We have Juventus dropping off more into two banks of four with Dybala a bit higher, Cuadrado and Matuidi tucking into narrow positions, pushing out to the fullbacks when need be, but providing Juventus with a solid base shape. But Juventus did make a lot of mistakes. Chiellini and Bonucci both culpable for nearly conceding goal-scoring opportunities. Bentancur as well with some poor passes to Rashford, being pressed by Matic, and the fact that he lost the ball when Pogba was able to turn him and fire a shot off the post. So that was United's best chance throughout the game. Bentancur was responsible for that. But the way that United really got back into the game was that they just pressed a bit higher. They were looking to close down markers. Lukaku and Mata were stepping out. Mata was sitting tighter on Pjanic. The wider players were pushing out. Matic was finally getting out to Bentancur. When Juve looked to play out of the back and Pjanic dropped deeper, they would have their markers push out, they would have markers step in and then ensure that they were able to play out of the back. They'd have Pogba push forward if need be with Mata stepping in. And then that was one of the ways that they did get forward. You think about the chances they did create. You had Mata dispossessing Pjanic, and then what happened there is that he played it into Martial, who ran at goal at Bonucci, but he fired his shot at Bonucci, and that was one issue. We saw Pogba dispossessed Matuidi in midfield, and Matic laid off to Mata, who played the ball in behind Cancelo for Martial. Martial was able to hold him off, but Bonucci came across. There were a lot of chances where United were just getting into good positions. They were pressing. You had Mata getting the ball to either side of Pjanic, and that was key, and he was offering a threat. He was one of the reasons why Matuidi got booked, because he was able to get the ball, slide it out wide, and that was another avenue that they were really exposing, was that Matuidi was tucked in narrow, so Ashley Young was able to get forward. So when Ashley Young got into those positions, often his crosses were overhit, and he was unable to get beyond the impressive Alex Sandro, who did a good job from a defensive aspect. But that was how United were really going about their business, pressing, just a bit more energy, but they still had their flaws, and Juve had their chances. There were times when Ronaldo looked to break him behind, but the pass from Cancelo was a bit under hit, and Lindelof was able to come across to stop that. You think about Dybala from deeper holding off Matic and playing the reverse ball into Pjanic, who ran off of Mata, and he's looking to play the pass into Ronaldo, but it was overhit. Cancelo had an opportunity where Cuadrado shifted it over and he got in behind Martial, but the cross was cleared. And then you think about their best chance of the half. It's Alex Sandro getting away from his marker, Ronaldo dropping off. Ronaldo drops off, plays it into Pjanic, getting in behind Mata, who sweeps it out to Cuadrado. What happens there is that Dybala makes the run between the center backs, and he's able to pull it back when he runs that shot for Ronaldo, who forces De Gea into a big save. Ronaldo also did have his opportunity where he played a poor pass into Cancelo when he dropped in between the midfield bank and got a pass from Bentancur. That ended up seeing a poor pass into Cancelo. When you break things down as a whole, Juventus were able to sit off. They made the right substitutions. United couldn't. And when you think about the game as a whole, Juventus Juventus started the game well, were able to retain possession. They found the overloads in the right-hand side. In the second half, they made some errors, and against a better side, they will get punished. But here, they're able to hold off the United side that were very naive, dropped off a bit too deep, didn't look like they had ideas, and you could see the gulf in class between the two sides, whereas United are far, far away from being one of Europe's elite sides. Juventus look like they're almost there, and with Cristiano Ronaldo playing this well with his back to goal, with Cancelo offering attacking verve, Alex Sandro providing a defensive presence, the midfield being so composed, and Dybala getting the space to offer his creativity and guile and linking play with other teammates. This was the perfect away performance from Juventus, barring the final 30 minutes, and that they'll need to improve. But today at Old Trafford, they gave United a footballing lesson. But let me know what you guys think. Can United get out of this group? And what about Juventus? Are they the Champions League favorites? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.